Well, as a native Vermonter, it's always good to get some New England references in there. You've got a handful of races in New Hampshire, but also the main gubernatorial election. Um, right, there is an East Coast bias and all this, but that's mainly because the polls close a lot earlier and they count the vote a lot earlier. If the main gubernatorial race, Paul LePage, the former Republican, looking to get his job back, if he is close in that race and or is winning that race and or a handful of these other Republican congressional candidates are close or winning in New England, that's a pretty good indicator that the red wave is going to crest all the way, roll all the way to the Pacific throughout the evening.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like the LePage, the Republican, has much of a chance.
Stranger things have happened. What we tried to do just for investors at Cowen is put together a handful of bellwether races. And it's not even so much if LePage wins, is it competitive? Is it close? You can make inferences from that because a lot of these bigger races that folks are focused on are going to take a long time to count, whether it's Pennsylvania, whether it's Arizona, whether it's Wisconsin. So we wanted to, put together a couple of bellwethers, give people a sense of what to watch for when the vote stops, right? Because it's not 1 week from now when the election begins. Hopefully that's when the election ends. By tomorrow, we will probably have about 25 million votes already cast.
Yeah, and that is the big thing. We forget how many votes, maybe a quarter of the votes, because they say this could be the most voted on election of all time, which is good. It means democracy is strong, and we're happy to hear that. What's the likelihood we won't know what happened in Georgia for a long time?
Well, Georgia, just like 2 years ago, could well go to overtime. If no candidate receives 50% plus one of the vote, you have a runoff on December 6th. There is a libertarian candidate in Georgia who could easily get low single digits that would prevent the two primary candidates, Senator Warnock, the Democrat, and Herschel Walker, the Republican, from breaking 50%. So just like 2 years ago, we may be going to overtime in Georgia.
What's the most likely ultimate outcome, and what does it mean for the markets?
From a market standpoint, what really matters is not do you get both House and Senate, but do you get one? Because which seems the most likely, both House and Senate flip to Republicans. From an investor standpoint, that means for the next 2 years, tax hikes are off the table and increased fiscal spend is off the table. A lot of apprehension about future fiscal spend from market participants, just because that will make the Fed's job of taming inflation all the harder. Yeah. So we're back to divided government, and we're back to investigations, impeachments, et cetera. But on the big macro items that investors care about, that should be pretty welcome news for investors. There
was a story out today. You're a Vermonter, so as a New Englander, maybe you still have family there. They probably get their power and light from Eversource, which is the biggest utility. Eversource's CEO just sent a letter to the White House basically asking for help with natural gas because they have a real risk of running low or running out of natural gas. And the thought of a winter in Burlington where the heat doesn't turn on because your utility is out of gas is not only terrifying, it just seems impossible in the United States in the year 2022, but it's a real story. If we get a red sweep, do you think there will be meaningful change to energy policy where you might get some pipelines in the Northeast so don't have to burn wood and trash to make power, which is literally what they're doing today?
Well, you still have, in terms of energy policy, right, you just passed the Inflation Reduction Act, $300 billion plus in climate and tax credits. What didn't get done is Senator Manchin's energy permitting reforms. Now, depending on the margins in the Senate, that is something that will certainly be on the agenda. It'll also probably be on the agenda in the lame duck when Congress returns in 2 weeks, about 10 bills in that lame duck. And right, Congress typically reacts in situations like that. So that's something certainly to keep an eye on in terms of the energy space.
Chris Kreuger, I remember the Maine from like 1898, but I've never heard of as goes Maine, so goes the nation. Watching Maine, always a unique insight. Chris, really appreciate your views. Thank you very much.